I live in the Netherlands, and here in the Netherlands, there is this saying, doe normaal. Doe normaal, translated literally, means act normal. And while I haven't been here long enough to know the historical context behind the saying, I have been living here long enough to see how that saying permeates every aspect of day-to-day life here in the Netherlands. Now, for context, I grew up in the US. I grew up in Dallas, Texas, and I also spent time in LA and New Orleans. And I've also traveled to various other cities around the US. I've been to New York, Las Vegas, Chicago, etc. I've been to a lot of different places around the US. And what I found is that the Netherlands, at least the parts of it that I've seen, are by and large much more functional than pretty much anywhere that I've been to in the US, meaning that the societies here in the Netherlands, as a collective, and in the particular places that I've been to on a micro level, all operate with a lot more cohesiveness than any place that I've seen in the US. And this is primarily due to the citizens buying into the doe normaal mindset. What does this mean? What does the doe normaal mindset actually mean? What are the implications of it? Well, essentially, when you decide to live by the doe normaal way of life, you are essentially buying into the idea of collectivism rather than the idea of individualism. Now, if you don't know what collectivism is essentially prioritizing the society as a whole, prioritizing the group over the individual, whereas individualism is pretty self-explanatory. Here in the Netherlands, and from what I've seen in Europe overall, people generally abide by collectivism. And while this does make for a much more cohesive and functional society where the crime rate is lower and the income inequality is a lot lower and the general quality of life is higher for the average person, for the few people who don't want to be average, for the few people who don't fit into that collectivist line of thinking, life can become very restrictive very, very quickly. Now, I'm not saying that that's happened to me, but I can see how in a society like this one, the people who stand out from the crowd could be very, very isolated, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and even physically. And as a result, a lot of people who could potentially go on to change the world at a much larger scale than they currently are end up surrendering their dreams of living the life that they came here to live in order to fit into the collectivist line of thinking. Now, I'm bringing up the Netherlands as an example because I think that the doe normaal mindset is a much more extreme example of the general mindset that I myself almost fell into when I graduated high school. So when I graduated high school, I was just like any other 18-year-old, or actually 17-year-old because I graduated at 17, but that's besides the point. I was just like any other high school graduate. I thought that there was one path and one path only to success, and that was you go to college or trade school or wherever else, and then you get a job. Because that's all I had seen up to that point in life. But after I graduated, I started to further inquire into other alternative ways of living. And what I quickly found out was that there were a lot of people out here, people who were in my age range even, who not only rejected the collectivist line of thinking, the idea that you had to follow the traditional route, but they were also very, very successful. They were very successful by having followed their own path. And I realized very quickly that that was the path that I wanted to take. But I didn't want to take that path bad enough to not go to college, at least initially. So I signed up for college. I ended up foregoing the opportunity to go to my dream university that I had worked so hard to get into. And instead I went to community college because I knew deep down that I probably was not going to finish college. So I went to community college, and I remember my second day there. It was either my first or second day there. We were doing an icebreaker activity in my English class. First of all, that was the first red flag right there. Why are we doing icebreakers when all of us are 18 and up? Doesn't make sense. But anyways, I was paired with this girl who was sitting behind me. And I remember very vividly that the prompt on the board was we had to tell each other how old we were, what we were going to major in, and what we were going to do after college. And I remember she told me that she was 20 years old, she was in nursing, and she wanted to be a nurse, of course. And for me, I told her that I was 18, I was majoring in business, or I at least planned to major in business at the time, and I wanted to be rich. That was the goal that I had after college. I told her I want to be rich. And I remember she laughed. She laughed at me because she thought I was joking. But I just kind of sat there deadpan because I was serious. I wanted to be rich. And in that moment, I came to the conclusion that I don't think these other people here have the same goal as me. I don't think that the people who I'm in college with are going in the same direction that I'm going in. And of course, that was a very big conclusion to come to from that one isolated incident. But if you are in college or if you've been to college, then you probably can attest that this is true. Most people who go to college want to just follow the traditional route and live a good, average, and secure life. More on security later on in this video. And there are very few people who have disproportionate aspirations for themselves, like I did at 18. After that interaction with that girl, I realized that if everybody is going in that direction and this is the path that they're taking, I must be on the wrong path because I want to go in that direction. And if you're in California and you want to get to New York, you don't want to start driving west because while you might get there eventually, it's going to take you much longer because you have to circle the whole entire planet to do so. And in the same way, I realized that even if college could get me rich or get me out of that traditional path or the traditional destination of security that most people were striving for, it would take me much longer. And so I dropped out. Now, ever since I dropped out, I have been pursuing the path that truthfully doesn't even exist. I'm really carving my own path as I go. And I'm saying that to say that I still experience all of the same fear that other people who follow the traditional path experience when they think about following a path like mine. I still have a lot of nights where I struggle to sleep because I am petrified of the uncertainty that awaits me the next day. But ultimately, I would much rather take the uncertainty, which offers unlimited potential, than to take the certainty of a soul-crushing life, of the misery and constraints of security, or at least perceived security. There are two doors in life. The first door is marked freedom, and the second door is marked security. If you walk through the door marked security, you get neither. And if you walk through the door marked freedom, you get both. But when you walk through that door marked freedom, you also have to let go of the line of thinking that you are going to be able to be average and you're going to be able to conform to what is normal in other people's eyes. You're going to have to accept that you will be isolated. You will be isolated from a social standpoint, and it might weigh on your conscience very, very, very heavily. But at the end of the day, you have this life to live. Whether you believe in an afterlife or reincarnation or anything else doesn't really matter. What we know for sure is that you have this life, and this is your chance to be you. You know deep down what you want. If you're watching this video still up to this point, and really even if you clicked on this video, you know what you want. You know what you want, you know what path it behooves you to take. The question is, are you courageous enough to take that path? Are you courageous enough to walk through that door that you know you need to walk through? I can't answer that question for you, but I can answer that question for myself. And that is what I will continue to do through videos just like this one.